What if everything we think we know about a good night's rest is just wrong? Seriously. We think of sleep as a biological necessity, a time for the body to shut down, recharge, and go dark for 8 solid hours. We chase this perfect, uninterrupted block of slumber, and we get anxious when it slips through our fingers. We call it insomnia. We label it a disorder. But what if our ancestors knew something we'd forgotten? What if the real problem isn't that we wake up in the middle of the night, but our modern belief that we shouldn't? They didn't just go to bed, they entered a sacred world. A world where God spoke through dreams, where healing happened overnight in stone temples, and where the night wasn't one solid block of darkness, but a mysterious 2-act journey. They knew the boundary between waking and sleeping wasn't a wall, but a doorway. And by stepping through it, they found not just rest, but revelation. Tonight we're unraveling the ancient mysteries of sleep. We're going to journey back to a time when the night was alive with meaning, and in doing so we'll discover the forgotten rituals and surprising habits that challenge everything we believe about how we're supposed to rest. This isn't just a story about the past, it's about a part of ourselves we might have lost. Our journey begins on the banks of the Nile under a blanket of stars so brilliant they seem almost within reach. In ancient Egypt, the sunset wasn't an end, but a transformation. The world slipped into a sacred and mysterious state, and so did the human soul. For many Egyptians, to sleep was to embark on a perilous but vital journey. A prominent spiritual belief held that the soul traveled nightly into the duat, the underworld, navigating challenges to be reborn with the morning sun. Sleep wasn't downtime, it was divine time, and in this divine space, dreams were the currency of the gods. They weren't just random firings of a tired brain, but direct coded messages, brimming with guidance, prophecy, and most importantly healing. The Egyptians believed so profoundly in the power of dreams that they developed a systematic way to engage with them, a practice blurring the line between medicine, magic, and faith. This practice was known as dream incubation. Imagine someone suffering from a chronic illness, a deep grief, or just paralyzing uncertainty. Local healers can't help. Their prayers feel unanswered. As a last resort, they undertake a pilgrimage to a dream temple. These weren't mythical places. They were real institutions, often dedicated to gods of wisdom and healing, like the deified architect Imhotep, or later, the Greco-Egyptian god Serapis. Upon arrival, you wouldn't just be shown to a room, you'd enter a multi-day process of intense preparation, all designed to purify the body and open the mind. It started with cleansing baths, a literal and symbolic washing away of impurities. Then came a strict fast, emptying the body to make it a clearer vessel for the divine. The seeker would spend their days in prayer and contemplation, making offerings and narrowing their focus. Priests would perform chants and rituals, the air thick with incense and incantations, all meant to shift the seeker's consciousness long before sleep ever arrived. Finally, the night of incubation would come. The seeker was led into a special, consecrated chamber known as the abattoir. They would lie down on a simple mat or stone slab, armed with nothing but hope. They weren't just trying to sleep, they were surrendering, inviting the god to enter their dreams and deliver a cure or a revelation. And then, in the depths of that sacred sleep, the dream would come. Maybe the god would appear directly, a luminous figure, touching the afflicted part of their body and healing it instantly. Or maybe the message was symbolic, a dream of a specific animal or plant that needed to be deciphered upon waking. The next morning, the seeker would share their dream with the temple priests. These priests weren't just spiritual guides, they were master dream interpreters, who consulted incredible manuals compiled over centuries. In fact, one of these dream books has survived, the papyrus Chester BT3, dating to the New Kingdom, likely around the 13th century BCE. This papyrus is a catalogue of dreams and their meanings. On its pages, we find lists of omens. A vertical column begins, "If a man sees himself in a dream," followed by a description, a one-word appraisal of good or bad, and a prediction. For example, if a man sees himself in a dream looking out of a window, good, it means the hearing of his cry. Or, more ominously, if a man sees himself in a dream with his bed catching fire, bad, it means driving away his wife. The word bad was often written in red ink, the color of danger. The priests would use this ancient knowledge to decode the seeker's vision and prescribe a course of action. The Egyptians understood that healing wasn't just physical, it was a holistic process involving the mind, the spirit, and the deep, mysterious world of the subconscious. They transformed the vulnerability of sleep into an opportunity for empowerment, a perspective that suggests sleep isn't a void, but a landscape rich with potential, if we only know how to navigate it. If this journey is making you reconsider your own relationship with the night, consider subscribing for more explorations into forgotten history. Now, let's hop across the Mediterranean, from the sands of Egypt to the rocky shores of ancient Greece. Here, the reverence for sleep and dreams didn't just continue, it evolved into a highly specialized, therapeutic art form centered around one of their most famous gods, Asclepius, the god of medicine. Asclepius, often shown holding a staff with a single serpent wrapped around it, a symbol we still use in medicine today, was said to be a physician so skilled he could even raise the dead. His cult spread throughout the Hellenic world, and magnificent healing sanctuaries, known as Asclepia, were built in his honor. These weren't hospitals as we know them, they were sprawling, sacred complexes built in places of great natural beauty, often near a quiet spring or grove. The most famous was at Epidaurus, a place of pilgrimage for the sick and suffering. To journey there was to leave the mundane world behind and enter a realm where the spiritual and physical dissolved into one. Imagine a Greek soldier with a wound that won't heal, or a philosopher tormented by a troubled mind. They arrive at the Asclepian not as a patient, but as a pilgrim. Their treatment, like in Egypt, began with purification, or catharsis. They would bathe in the sacred spring, fast, and stick to a clean diet. But the prep work was more than physical. The Asclepia were holistic healing environments. A pilgrim might spend days walking through beautiful colonnades, exercising in the gymnasium, or attending plays in the great theater. The goal was to soothe the soul and cultivate a state of hopeful expectation. They'd make offerings to Asclepius, sometimes leaving a small clay model of the afflicted body part, a leg, an eye, a torso, a physical token of their prayer. When the priests felt the pilgrim was ready, they would proceed to the main event, encoimesis, or temple sleep. As night fell, they were led into the abaton, the holiest part of the sanctuary, to sleep with the intention that Asclepius himself would visit them in their dreams. The belief was that the god would appear in their slumber, sometimes as a man, sometimes as one of his sacred animals, like a dog or a non-venomous snake. It was said these snakes would sometimes slither freely through the dormitories, their touch seen as a divine blessing. In the dream, the god might perform a miraculous surgery. Inscriptions found at Epidaurus tell incredible stories of these dream cures. One tells of a man with an abscess who dreamt the god cut him open, removed the pus, and stitched him back up. He awoke healed. Another speaks of a barren woman who dreamt Asclepius was with her, and she later became pregnant. These testimonials, carved into large marble slabs called iamata, preserve the case histories and cures of about 70 patients. While some cures sound fantastical, others are realistic enough that historians believe some procedures could have happened while the patient was in a dreamlike hypnotic state, maybe induced by substances like opium. More often though, the dream was symbolic. The next morning the temple priests would interpret the dream's narrative to prescribe a treatment involving diet, exercise, or herbal remedies. What the Greeks perfected was a powerful form of psychosomatic medicine. They understood that a patient's belief and mental state were crucial to healing. The entire process was a powerful ritual that mobilized the patient's own inner resources for recovery. The Romans, who were huge fans of Greek culture, eagerly adopted these practices, assimilating Asclepius as Aesculapius and building their own healing temples. They continued the tradition of seeing sleep not just as rest, but as a therapeutic tool. So far, we've focused on the spiritual side of ancient sleep, but the mysteries run deeper, extending to the very rhythm of their slumberer patterns so different from our own. It forces us to question what a normal night's rest even is. For most of us, the goal is clear. A single, uninterrupted 8-hour block. Waking up at 3 a.m. is a source of anxiety, a sign of middle-of-the-night insomnia. But for a vast stretch of human history, waking in the dead of night wasn't just normal. It was expected. It was the centerpiece of a sleep pattern we've almost completely forgotten. Biphasic, or segmented, sleep. Evidence for this has been painstakingly uncovered by historians, most notably Roger Ekirch, who sifted through hundreds of historical documents. What he found was a consistent pattern. Before the Industrial Revolution, many people in the Western world slept in two distinct chunks, known as first sleep and second sleep. While it may not have been a universal, rigid system everywhere, the references are too widespread to ignore. Let's imagine a night in 16th century Europe. A family might retire not long after sunset, maybe around 9 p.m., and fall into their first sleep. Then, sometime after midnight, a natural, gentle awakening would occur. This wasn't a panicked waking. It was a calm, quiet period of consciousness that could last for an hour or more. So what did people do? Almost everything. For the spiritual, it was the perfect time for prayer and reflection. For writers and scholars, it was a period of immense creativity. But it wasn't all solitary. People might chat with their bedfellows, tend to the fire, or even visit neighbors. It was also seen as an ideal relaxed time for intimacy between spouses. After an hour or two, they'd feel drowsy again and lie down for their second sleep, which lasted until dawn. References to this pattern are scattered everywhere once you know what to look for. From Chaucer's Canterbury Tales to 16th century medical texts, it wasn't some niche practice. For many it was the normal rhythm of life for centuries. And get this, science has even validated this historical evidence. In a famous experiment from the 1990s, psychiatrist Thomas Ware deprived a group of people of artificial light. At first, they slept in a single block, but after a few weeks, their sleep patterns shifted. They began sleeping for about 4 hours, waking for 1 to 3 hours, and then falling back asleep for another 4. Their bodies had spontaneously reverted to a biphasic sleep pattern. This suggests segmented sleep might not just be cultural, but a natural human response to long nights. That anxiety you feel at 3 a.m., the research suggests it might not be a disorder, but a deep ancestral echo. Our ancestors didn't fight this waking period. They embraced it as a gift, a quiet, peaceful pause in the darkness we've almost entirely forgotten. For thousands of years, many people lived and slept this way. So what happened? How did we go from a world of 2 sleeps to a world obsessed with 1? The answer lies in a sudden, brilliant, world-altering disruption, the invention of artificial light and the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. The change began subtly in the 17th and 18th centuries with gas street lighting in cities like Paris and London. For the first time, the night began to retreat. Coffee houses and taverns stayed open later, and for the wealthy, the evening became a time for socializing, pushing bedtimes later and compressing the time for sleep. But the real revolution came in the 19th century. The Industrial Revolution brought a relentless focus on productivity and efficiency. Factory work demanded a new kind of workforce, one that operated on the clock, not the sun. In this new world, sleep started to be seen as a liability, unproductive downtime that needed to be minimized. The quiet, contemplative period between 2 sleeps had no place in a world that valued efficiency above all else. The final blow was Thomas Edison's incandescent light bulb. With the flick of a switch, humanity gained unprecedented control over the day. Edison himself was famously dismissive of sleep, and his public statements often characterized it as a waste of time, a view reflective of the era's drive for productivity. He saw his light bulb as a tool for progress, allowing people to work and socialize long into the night. As bedtimes were pushed later and wake-up times remained fixed, the window for sleep shrank. There just wasn't enough time for 2 sleeps with a break. By the early 20th century, the idea of a first and second sleep had largely vanished. Within a few generations, a sleep pattern that had existed for ages wasn't just abandoned, it was forgotten and pathologized. Doctors began to see waking in the night as insomnia. This shift has had profound consequences. Our bodies evolved to follow the natural light-dark cycle. The constant exposure to artificial light at night, especially the blue light from our screens, confuses our brains by suppressing melatonin, the hormone that signals our body to sleep. This modern disregard for our circadian rhythms is now linked to a host of health problems. In gaining control over the night, we may have lost our natural ability to rest. We've journeyed from Egyptian dream temples to the gaslit streets of industrial London, and we've seen how radically our view of sleep has changed. But what does this mean for us, right now? Seriously, what do you think? Could you imagine sleeping in 2 shifts? Or have you ever had a dream that felt like more than just a dream? We want to know your experiences and thoughts. Share them in the comments below. We read every single one and believe there's as much to learn from each other as there is from the past. This isn't just a fun history lesson. The ancient mysteries of sleep hold powerful, practical echoes for our modern lives. They offer a new way to look at our own struggles with rest. Let's start with waking up in the middle of the night. The history of segmented sleep offers a radical reframe. What if it's not a malfunction? What if it's an echo of our natural biological rhythm? Just knowing that this was historically normal can dramatically reduce the anxiety people feel when they wake up. This knowledge gives you permission to stop fighting it. Instead of tossing and turning, getting more frustrated, try embracing it. If you're awake at 3 a.m., don't see it as a crisis. Get out of bed, read a book by a dim light, write in a journal. The key is to treat this time as an intentional pause. By removing the pressure to be asleep, you might find that sleepiness returns on its own, letting you drift into your second sleep. Next, let's revisit dream incubation. While we're probably not visiting the temples of Asclepius, the core principle of setting an intention before sleep is something anyone can do. Think of it as opening a dialogue with your own subconscious. Here's a modern way to try it. Before bed, take a few quiet moments. Think of a single, clear question you're struggling with. Write it down. As you lie down, hold that question gently in your mind. Keep a journal by your bed, and when you wake up, write down anything you remember, no matter how strange. You might not get a direct answer overnight, but by doing this, you're training your mind to use the dream state for insight, just like our ancestors did. Finally, the most fundamental lesson is about our relationship with light and darkness. Our ancestors lived in sync with the sun. We live in a state of perpetual artificial daylight. Reclaiming a piece of that ancient rhythm is maybe the most powerful change we can make. Try to get bright, natural light in the morning. This helps anchor your body clock. Then, as evening approaches, mimic the sunset indoors. Dim the lights, switch to warmer lamps, and most importantly, try to create a digital dusk by reducing your exposure to blue light from screens in the hour or two before bed. This helps your body produce melatonin and naturally prepare for rest. We started by asking, what if everything we know about sleep is wrong? We've seen that sleep was once a gateway to healing and divine communication. We've rediscovered the quiet hour between a first and second sleep, and we witnessed how the modern age gave us the 24-hour day, but may have cost us the intuitive rhythms of the night. It turns out the solid, 8-hour block of sleep we chase is not a timeless biological rule, but a relatively recent invention. Waking in the night isn't necessarily a disorder, but an echo of an ancestral pattern. And our dreams, so often dismissed, were once considered a profound source of wisdom. Perhaps the greatest mystery isn't what our ancestors did, but what we've chosen to forget. We live in a world that celebrates relentless activity and sees sleep as an inconvenience to be conquered. Our ancestors simply honored it. So tonight, as you get ready for bed, consider these ancient echoes. As you turn down the lights, you're not just ending the day, you're beginning a ritual as old as humanity. If you wake in the silent hours, maybe you aren't broken, but just in tune with a deeper rhythm. And as you close your eyes, remember you're not just shutting down, you're stepping into a world our ancestors knew well, a world of mystery, healing, and endless possibility.